Hey everyone, Cooper here, host of the fine podcast you're listening to. I just want to let you know that the episode you clicked on has a format that is very heavily inspired by a podcast called The Bookening. To be clear, our thoughts and opinions in this episode are our own, but the format is very similar to this podcast. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give credit where it is due. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Coming up next, Booking It reads The Silver Chair. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Booking It. I am, of course, your humble and eloquent host, Mr. Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today is my very good friend, Mr. Tanner Lewis. How you doing, Tanner?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
You betcha. Well, it's just me and Tanner today. Isaiah has just gotten back from like 2 back-to-back vacations, and so we think he's still asleep. We're not sure. He probably is. Anyway, yeah. So, by the way, funny thing, Tanner, the other day, I was at Isaiah's house after he'd gotten back from vacation number 1, and we were supposed to watch Hamlet, right? And so we're watching it. It's a live, it's a film video of a live production, right? And and so first they got the very opening scene. Some dudes some ladies are playing some dudes, basically. And so they're like, okay, well maybe this didn't have enough, guys or whatever. It's a play, so it's you gotta play to your availability of actors and whatever. Anyway, fast forward like one scene. Hamlet's a girl, okay, and so you're like, okay, and then Ophelia shows up and she's a dude, and so we're like, all right, let's just stop this here. Anyway, all I had to say, what I found interesting was later on in Silver Chair, when he's describing Aurelian for the first time, he describes him like Hamlet. Did you see that?
He did. Wait.
Yeah, because he was dressed all in black and had blonde hair, which is actually how all Hamlets look, apparently. So
Intriguing. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So, anyway, long story.
Literary copycats.
Well, I mean, apparently Hamlet is just well known to be dressed in black and be blonde. I did not know that, but apparently he is. So, that's how to tie in Isaiah, Hamlet, which we'll be doing later, all into Silver Chair. Anyway, Tanner, do you have any specific baggage on Silver Chair that you'd like to, I think, and like we've been talking about, what was your expectation coming to it again this time around?
I thought it was going to be my favorite one because it has been for the past year and a half.
Yeah.
It is not.
Interesting.
Yes, it is not my favorite one. Not because it isn't good, but just because they're better.
Okay, that's
what
my
I've learned.
next question. Yeah. Okay. Well,
yes.
Shockingly enough, it was my favorite this time around, I think. I finished, as of yesterday, the last battle again, so I'm done with all of them, and I think that, I'll have to think about it more when we go around and do our, looking back episode, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be my favorite one. So, I actually really enjoyed it this time around, and I knew it was going to be one of my favorites, but I was interested to see if it was my favorite, and it was, because as you kept geeking out about in like the very beginning, the whole underworld stuff and Bism and all that kind of stuff was really, really cool. So
Bism.
By the way, before we go any further, do you want to guess which medieval planet this is based on?
Oh, wait. It's...
Or supposedly.
Supposedly. It's the... This one's supposed to be the moon, right?
It is. That's correct.
Yes, I knew that.
So it's all over the place.
I'm in chapter 1 of the book now.
Of Planet Narnia. Okay.
Of Planet Narnia.
Starting with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
He moves you through, like, he's talking about all of it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's not like a book-by-book.
It's not a book-by-book, planet-by-planet. It's like are you ready to know everything that I know? Is what it is.
Okay, cool. Well, Silver Chair supposedly it's based on the moon, and that's kind of all over the place. especially when you go to like the very end of the book as well. First, because it's kind of, I think they like come out into the pale moonlight or whatever is kind of what he talks about. So anyway, it's pretty obvious if that's the case, or at least it's easy to draw a connection, whether or not he intended to. It's there. So, anyway, Silverchair, what did you like about it, Tanner, this time around, and why is it not your favorite?
Okay. I think some of my favorite parts were just all of like the anything with PUDDLEGLUM.
Yes, that's true. Let's just get with
PUDDLEGLUM
joins the pantheon of excellent side characters. I think that me and Tanner both agree he and Reepicheep are kind of the best in terms of the side characters.
Yes,
and
definitely.
By the best side character, we mean the best character because they're a lot more fun than any of the normal characters.
Too true.
Even though I understand that to have a PUDDLEGLUM, you have to have a normal, everyman protagonist. But anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, anything with PUDDLEGLUM and burning flippers that smell like wet grass.
Oh, yes. That was my favorite description in the entire book because, he's putting out the fire, and so the green fog goes away. And it made everybody's heads clear, and Lewis notes, not just because, the fire was destroyed, and so the green smoke was getting everywhere, but also because the room was filled with the smell of, like, burnt marshmallow, which is not the best smell of all time. And so, yeah, it sharpens everybody's senses a lot. That was funny.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And then, the metaphors in this book are strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the allegory side of it. Just, it's very strong as far as Narnia goes. Like, more so than a lot of the other books, which is why I would have said in the past it was my favorite. Besides the fact that they like almost got eaten by giants, which was like one of the greatest scenes of all time.
Oh man, love that stuff.
Yes. But I think the reason that it's not my favorite is just because of like the just their like better flows to the stories in the other books. I shouldn't be blanking out on my favorite one right now, guys. But like this is definitely my top 3.
Oh, Horse's Boy, was that still your favorite, or Magician's Nephew? I don't know.
Yeah, I think my favorite still is the last battle, the next one.
True. Okay.
And then this one and the Horse and His Boy combat for first and second. I mean for second and third.
Gotcha.
We don't know. I can't decide which, so those ones just flop around depending on the day.
Yeah, I will say, if I can jump in, what we mean by flow is it's structured very interestingly. Like, it cannot decide if it wants to be a journey or if it just wants to be hang out in Underland or, like, kind of what it is. First, like, the entire opening section takes a bit longer than most of the Narnia books. Like, I think it's page 70 in my edition, which is, like, 1/3 the way through the book, almost. It's just a little less than that. Like, it's roughly 25% of the book, where maybe a little bit more, where you're just like waiting. You have the Parliament of Owls. You're setting up the story. You're telling Prince Aurelian and his story, and they're getting to Narnia. All that kind of stuff takes quite a bit, and then the journey section of it is actually pretty small. You have like 1 or 2 chapters of journey. You get to the Giant's Palace. That's fun stuff, and then you go underground. So it's kind of like this weird. Underworld takes up so much of the book where it can't just be the final act, really, of the story. In other words, like the second act is so short, whereas like journey books like this typically take much longer than that. So I feel you. It's structured kind of weird in that sense.
Yeah, I couldn't justify the segments, like the acts, if you will. Like, I think I can justify them more in The Last Battle and The Horse and His Boy, and that's why those two kind of just go a little bit above this one. Most times.
Well, Horse and His Boy is like a real journey story. Like, it has fun side things, but it's like most of it's about the journey, which is why it's, supposedly, again, based on the planet Mercury, or inspired by the planet Mercury, which is, has the shortest trip around the sun. So, anyway, I will say, the thing that really I loved about this book was just Lewis building his own kind of cosmology here. that'll later be kind of finished and capped by the last battle. So what I mean by that is when they go to Underworld, there's a bunch of like cool things. Lewis is just kind of world building. Like you see Father Time, right? And he's just like, or just Time the giant. I forget if it's Father or just Time.
It's just
he's
Time.
Just in a cave, lying there. And they're like, yeah, he's just there, and he'll awake on the final day to destroy the world or whatever. And you're just like, oh, okay, cool. And then you just have the Bism is really cool. You have the lakes that go on forever underground, and you just have cool things like the Under Me on top. You have the dwarves, the Undermen, or whatever they're called, or the Earthmen. I don't know what they're called. I forget. Just kind of repeating the phrase, "Few return to the Sunlit Lands" or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. So that's really cool. Lewis is just kind of building his own cosmology, his own medieval. Like you can tell, he's really into the medieval stuff, and he's kind of building his own medieval thing here. And Prince Caspian, one of my main critiques with that was he didn't really succeed there. I feel like he tried to blend paganism and his Christian allegory and didn't quite work in Caspian. But here I think it works quite well. He's building his own cosmology, and it's really cool and it really works. So that's kind of what I really enjoyed about this book. Underworld and all that kind of stuff is really fun. And obviously PUDDLEGLUM and that last scene with the witch is kind of worth the whole story. So
yes.
Yeah. I will say one note of baggage that I didn't get to earlier. I remember reading this book on Kindle, or no, it was on a device, so it might have been an iPad. And for some reason, it's an odd memory I have. I cranked up the text size. It's like very large. Like it was like 3 words a page. And so I was like reading the last chapters, but I still had 600 pages left. So anyway, weird aside.
What?
That's how I finished Silverchair, was like 5 pages a word. Or no, 5 words a page. On like an iPad or Kindle or something. So weird memory.
Guys, savor this moment. It's very rare that Cooper gets this random.
Is it though? Is it? I mean,
slightly.
I do host this podcast, and we go on many tangents.
Yes, because you allow me to go on weird tangents. There's a difference.
Yeah, Isaiah doesn't want to loonies here. Anyway, let's talk about PUDDLEGLUM, because PUDDLEGLUM is a character that is awesome, first and foremost, but also that Lewis kind of has affinity for, and this type of character shows up all over the place in Lewis. Right? The kind of lovable cynic, or that kind of person. And I've talked about this before, but there's a character in the Space Trilogy who's much like this. Did you ever meet him, Tanner, in the That Hideous Strength?
Remind me his name.
McAfee, I think is his name.
Oh, the guy who didn't
I don't remember.
The guy who didn't believe that the head talked or something.
No, he's part of like Ransom's group. He's just like the honest kind of atheist guy.
Yes, like the husband.
No, not him. So
okay, no, I have no idea. I don't remember him.
Okay, well, anyway,
I did finish it. I just haven't reread it.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, he's part of the Ransom's group. Anyway, for those of you who haven't read it, he's just this character who Lewis has a lot of affinity for as well, but he's not a believer, and as everyone else is in the book, but he's an honest kind of character, right? Like he's not one of the bad guys. And so Lewis, you can tell, has this great affinity for this type of character, which I think really Lewis kind of probably was before he converted to Christianity. And so PUDDLEGLUM is one of those characters where he's pessimistic and he's doubting, but at the end of the day, he's going to save the day because of that kind of pessimism or cynicism, right?
And you also
Go ahead.
You also just have to like respect him for the invention of the what are they called again? Marsh Wiggles.
Yes, that's true.
You have
it's
to
such a fun little breed of character of animal.
I have never this is the only story where I have like found something that is uniquely C.S. Lewis, right?
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of like I've stolen this from this and this from this, but that is like
all those other creatures are, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Marshwiggle is Lewis's, which is why I think it's such a great character, like to be the cynic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. And me and Tanner have been doing a philosophy class for our co-op, and we're reading about Rene Descartes, and one of his kind of famous things is that he basically says, to doubt my doubts is to think, that kind of thing. Anyway, he talks about doubting his doubts and knowing he's alive because he can doubt his doubts. Anyway, Puddleglum at the very end doubts his doubt because he's such a doubter. And at the end of the day, it's him doubting his doubts that allows him to win the day and overcome the witch's, twisting of reality, that kind of thing. Which honestly is really good, and really, it's really Lewis kind of just beating up on relativism and the culture and all that kind of stuff, which is really fun to watch, and then also fun to see Puddleglum win the day.
Yes. Also, another thing that I have not thought of until I sat down at this microphone today. So, like when Aslan gives Jill the three things, I forget what they call them, like
the signs.
The signs, yes, the signs, and she can't remember them. I just thought about this as like the word of God and us not memorizing it. Anyways, just a very random.
Yeah, definitely not intended by Lewis at all. Definitely not.
Yes.
No, yeah,
yes.
I mean, sorry, I was being sarcastic, but like, really, it is a handy thing to have. Like, well, Jill didn't really obey the signs, and who knows, maybe it would have gone better for them if she had. But they remembered the last one, which is the most important one. So,
anyways,
let's
just a random side note.
Yeah, Eustace and Jill. How do they rank as far as like, the protagonist characters? In Narnia.
I think. Okay, how do I say this without like stabbing myself in the back? I think that I like them as the protagonist characters. I would say that Eustace was a lot more entertaining in previous ones.
Yeah, that's true.
And in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, he was a lot more of an entertaining character. Now he's just kind of
more fun. Yeah.
Now he's kind of boring, sadly. I'd say that Jill is once again an interesting character. I think they're mid as far as Narnia goes.
Okay.
They're not like the Pevensies, who I think are the ultimate protagonists. They need to be dropped in every book. And yeah. I think that just they're mid and they do an okay job. They push the story forward. Puddleglum spices up the very bland cake.
Yeah. I agree. I think Eustace kind of, I don't know what happened. Maybe just because he became the main character instead of the the side character a bit in Dawn Treader and stuff. But Jill is kind of an interesting character, like you said. She has a lot of flavor, a lot of personality for a protagonist, and that we've seen at least. So she's fun. She adds some sparkle, and her kind of pushing Eustace off. That's an interesting move that drives the plot forward. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the Pevensies at this point are just so iconic that it's kind of hard to say that you'd rather have these characters over them.
Yeah, and I also think, like, as a writer, my goal is to have more interesting main characters after reading so many books with bland main characters and like spicy side characters. Like, I think it's so much more fun to have spicy main characters. If that makes sense.
I mean, there is a reason why this is like the tradition of having quote unquote a bland main character as last. It's because you need someone who everybody can kind of relate to, and so that makes them more boring because they're not as interesting, I guess, to you, because they're not different, and so that allows the side characters to be fun. But if you just had interesting, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying your main character shouldn't be three-dimensional, shouldn't have their own characters, their own personalities. You should be able to connect to them and kind of see yourself in them. Whereas, I'm not really sure we're supposed to see ourselves in Puddleglum as much as we are supposed to see ourselves in Eustace. So, I don't know. I think there's a reason that the tradition of having a relatable protagonist and a kind of really fun side character is, is the thing. So I don't know if it's just a kind of, a thankless job being the protagonist that makes the book really shine, but I really have to kind of, play it by feel and see, well, this book has a really just kind of fun main character that not really a relatable kind of everyman character. So I don't know. Is what I'm saying making sense at all?
Yes, kind of.
Okay. Well, like I said, and I'm sure there are people who've done it well, and people have not done it well. So
yes, for sure. Anyways, the characters.
Yeah, the characters. Well, we have Rillian, we have Caspian. He's almost dead. Trumpkin is pretty funny in the very beginning, being deaf and all. So
That was entertaining.
Mm-hmm. And the Parliament of Alice is a fun scene as well. Just the telling of the story and the whole idea. So I don't know. I found that funny.
For the record, I just saw a bald eagle. That doesn't
more
happen
random than
often.
my thing earlier.
That is way more random, but I had to. This has to be documented so my family doesn't think I'm lying.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Tanner saw a bald eagle.
Yes.
Well, you want to talk about the underworld? Oh, by the way, we have the Emerald Witch, the Green Lady, I guess is what her name was. Was it your impression that she was the White Witch, or that she was someone different?
I don't know.
I've heard both interpretations.
I don't know. I kind of just walk into it blindly and let her appear and die.
Yeah.
That's my thought process. It makes it easier for me to comprehend and not overthink. But
like when you were reading it as a kid, did you ever think about it? And what was your thoughts before?
No, I accepted her as a different person. Just because she was too nice, and her flip wasn't as fast as the White Witch. It was more subtle. Mm-hmm. So I think it's for those reasons that I thought she was a different person. Now I'm not making any definite call by myself of what my opinion is. I kind of I float with the crowd on this one. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting if she was the White Witch, but I don't have enough evidence to prove that she is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. I think that they mention it in Silverchair. This, I was kind of aware this time, and they mentioned it in Silverchair, and it's doubtless this was of the same ilk as Jadis was. So, and this was written before Magician's Nephew, so there is some kind of that might be a discrepancy, just a little bit, in that regard. But I think you're right. I mean, I don't think we can never know. But I'm not like Disney, where I'm just bringing back the White Witch all over the place, So, for no reason.
Too true.
So I think I've always read it as separate, but you're right. We don't really know. I don't think that Lewis would ever bring back the White Witch after Aslan killing her. I think that would kind of ruin the allegory. So
I agree.
That's my opinion. I think she's a cool side character without the White Witch. I'm like, why does she need to be the White Witch? Why can't she just be her own fun villain? So it's not as iconic as the White Witch, but the green smoke and underworld and her almost launching a successful invasion upon the Sunlit Lands is pretty cool stuff. So
my favorite part is that nowhere in history is it documented the fact that like in Narnian history that they actually would have made it, right? It's the thing that almost happened but was never remembered.
Mm-hmm.
Every
that's
attempted
kind of
invasion.
The Cold War stories that have come out, It's
yes.
Man, this person could have started World War III, nuclear holocaust, but they did not. But no one remembers them. So
the people history forgot.
Yep. But anyway, Underworld is really cool. Just to say that again. All that kind of stuff. Just living there, the descriptions, especially as they're running out, is all really vivid. Lewis is really good at just giving you the sense of something. We'll talk about it in Last Battle, but I mean, the stuff about heaven that is the closest to feeling what heaven might feel like or describing heaven comes in the last battle, but it's very good at just like evoking these feelings. In the last battle, that happens too, like at the battle around the bonfire, all that confusion. Like he's really good at getting that feeling. And so here, as the water is rising, the light is opening from down below, everybody's running around, it's chaotic. That kind of stuff is really claustrophobic and really kind of makes you feel and puts you in the place of those characters as they're trying to get out, which is really, really awesome. So he's really good at describing that and making me feel it.
I also like his idea of like the layered underworld, right?
Yeah, true.
Like most people think, oh man, you're underground. You're now in the underworld, right? But he's like, no, this is not the way it works. We've got the underworld. We've got Bism. We've got the place below Bism, right?
We got the center of the earth. Yeah, I mean, this didn't. Well, actually, isn't it implied that Narnia is flat?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because Caspian at the end of this book says, "I like to go to their world where it's round." Well, what was I gonna say? Oh yes, nope, it wasn't. Oh yes, the Earthmen they capture. He's like, yeah, this is like the Shadowlands. So we call the Shadowlands up here.
Yeah.
Which is like a really good example of the iceberg principle, giving your reader just enough, and then letting them kind of fill in the gaps to their own imagination farther than that. And so he gives us this complete shallow lands of the underworld, which is really cool and really awesome. It's like, oh yeah, there's this place called Bism that's even deeper where you can like eat rubies,
The stuff you guys
really
got
cool.
up there is cold.
Yeah, this is like filled with fire and alive. Yeah, that stuff's really awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, Bism.
Bism.
What a great place. Wish I had gone to visit, but it's okay.
Right? I think that's not how he ends this book, is it? Right? He says, "Don't ever forget to go see those caves if you're ever in Narnia."
Yeah.
Lewis breaking when he's doing the kind of first person / third person narrator is really pretty funny.
Yes.
Like him as the person who interviewed all these people and then wrote down their story, and he's like talking to you. He and Tolkien both do that very well. Tolkien in The Hobbit and Lewis here. And I'm kind of sad that it's kind of gone away. Everything is really point of view now, which is still, it's fine. But I love the third person omniscient narrator with the kind of first person interjections coming in. Kate DiCamillo does this in Tale of Despero as well, she does a really good job there as well doing that.
We should bring it back, Cooper.
I should bring
we
it back.
We should bring it back.
The thing is, like, you got to do it well, and it's hard to do well, So
I'm confident in us. We can learn.
Yeah, let's do it
together,
my friend.
Me and Cooper and our writing endeavors.
That's right.
Weak, pitiful things, sadly.
Speak for yourself. No, I'm kidding. Anything you want to say about the end?
Oh,
you got really coming back, Caspian.
I definitely enjoyed like being back in actual Narnia. Okay, there we go. I just put my finger on it. This is why it's definitely not my favorite. We just found it. We're not above ground in Narnia, okay? The below ground stuff, like, as a younger kid, just kind of freaked me out. And so, like, just being... Okay. I am not afraid of the dark, but I am afraid of being in stories where there is 100% darkness for 90% of it.
Yeah, it's
Does that make sense?
Man. Yeah.
Well, yes. It creeps me out.
How people just, it feels unpleasant when they're down there. I think they're wrong, but I understand they could feel that.
And so that unpleasantness that I felt reading this as a child has not gone away. And now it's just led to a slight paranoia and why I don't read this book often.
Fair.
And, but the literary value and the greatness of the story has to make it in my top 3. But the reason that it can't be number 1 is because of that still present paranoia.
Makes sense. I gotcha.
And that's why the ending is my favorite, because it's the relief of being back in Narnia where there's a sun and a moon and fresh air.
Yes, that was a great scene where they come up and the fawns are all parading and doing their festival. That's another thing Liz is really good at. is adding things onto his world building that we've never heard of before, but not making them feel like they're tacked on, making them feel like you just haven't discovered them yet. Like a Marshwiggles, we've never heard of a Marshwiggle at all in Narnia before now, I don't think.
But it wasn't
And all of a
necessary
sudden-
before now.
It wasn't, but it didn't feel tacked on or anything. Like, I gotta come up with a new fun thing. It just felt organic and discovered, which is why that festival they come up on at the very end is really cool too, because it's like this awesome feature that is really cool and feels really natural for his people. We've never heard of it before, So, yeah, that was a good scene, and I agree. I like coming back up to Narnia and experiencing that stuff.
Anyways, you've now learned why this cannot be my number one favorite, but why it has to be in the top 3.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got Caspian coming back, and Lewis makes another jab at modern education with the experiment house place. He keeps doing that throughout the book, though, doesn't he? He's like,
yes.
They had never called them each other by their first names because that wasn't done. The experiment house, and he just kept making these jabs all the way through, and at the very end, they get to go and whip those boys and girls that are bad. So I like it.
Yes.
And Lewis once again shows his prowess at doing those last-minute book summaries that pay off and tie up everything, just like Jane Austen does. And another solid one here.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, that's the end.
Excellent stuff.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Eustace is special because he is one of the only characters that was in a book with the Pevensies and was in a book of his own.
Interesting.
I just like to point that out.
Okay. He kind of takes over from them, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
The trade-off
Yes.
was perfect, and he's the only other person that got 2.5 books. That's the way I like to think of it. Because
He
had
does
to
have
share,
like the most books.
He had to share the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but he got 2.5 books. The
Yep.
Pevensies only got, well,
Peter
if
and
you
Lucy
count-
got 2. And then, Peter and Susan got 2. And then Edmund and Lucy got 2.5.
Yes. So, and then he got the last battle, which I mean, just like we could count that as another half. So he gets 3 and they get 2.5. Done. He wins.
Boom. He wins.
Eustace.
By the way, going back to our conversation earlier, it's kind of the Incredibles thing. Like, if everyone's special, no one's special. So you got to have the characters that make the side characters kind of stand out. You got to somebody has to be bland, so other characters can pop. If that makes sense. And it may not seem like a fun thing, but when you have everybody pop, everybody be so weird and so cool, then nobody is. That makes
Wheel
more
of
sense.
Time.
Okay. Well, we'll get
that's
to that
my
when we get
take
to
on that. Cooper knows what I'm talking about.
Let's do some donor shoutouts. Where's my phone? Tanner, why don't you tell them where people go to get donor shoutouts?
They would go to patreon.com/bookinit and they would donate to any of our $5 and up tiers.
That's correct. I'm going to say the donor. Oh, wait. How many lampposts out of 7? Silverchair. I'm giving it 6.5.
Yeah, 6.
Okay, cool. I'll say the patron, and then you say if they would go to Bism or go back up to see their dead father. Or see their father before he died.
Okay.
We have Nana.
Go up.
Van Pappy and Wayla.
Go up.
Aziza's grandparents, Mike and Sylvia.
Go up.
Mike and Laura.
Bism.
Anna.
Bism.
Emily.
Bism.
Becky.
Go up.
Lizzie.
Bism.
And Keenan. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to that. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was
If you
Bism,
do,
by
make
the way,
sure to
for
leave a-
Keenan.
Okay. Did I interrupt you? My bad. Man, you're my flow there. There's a good flow there. I go. Okay. Thank you for listening, people. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you loved it a lot, make sure to support us over at patreon.com/bookinit. Bunch of cool stuff over there. Bonus episodes, for those of you who support enough, donor shoutouts, patron posts, all the good stuff. We'll see you next time with The Last Battle, wrapping up the Narnia books, before we do a Narnia recap of everything. So we'll see you then, and until that time comes,
keep on booking it.